Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. A Ukrainian drone attack has damaged and set ablaze a tanker and related infrastructure at a major oil terminal in Russia's Kyiv Black Sea seaport of Tuapse overnight. Now, the port is home to the Black Sea oil terminal and a Rosneft-controlled oil refinery, which Ukraine has targeted with several drone strikes this year. Kyiv has stepped up its strikes on Russian refineries, depots and pipelines in recent months in order to strain fuel supplies, disrupt military logistics and raise wartime costs, a campaign that it calls retaliation for Russian attacks on its own power grid. Now, according to the regional administration, falling drone debris also damaged an apartment building in the village of Sosnovi, just outside Tuapse. Now, no injuries were reported, although the railway station has suffered some minor damage. With us on the broadcast is Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. A very crucial strike has taken place in Tuapse. How does this reflect Ukraine's broader military strategy in order to target Russia's oil refineries? We've seen several strikes take place earlier as well at Rosneft refineries. This is, of course, being done in retaliation to Russia striking Ukrainian power grids.
Obviously, this follows what Ukraine was doing over the last months. No surprise, Ukraine will continue with those strikes. It is a clear military object. The reduction of Russian capacity to sell oil and gas globally is important for Ukraine and for the peace for that matter. So obviously more such strikes like the one in Tuapse yesterday we will see in the near future. In fact, I heard that 30% of the Russian capacity to export oil and gas has been already damaged. And that, again, speaks volume about how serious Ukraine is to defend its territory by reducing the capacity of Russia to obtain more funding for their weapons, for their aggressive wars. Ukraine is in full justification to continue doing those strikes. And they are precise. They are only targeting oil refineries, energy infrastructure. I wouldn't say it's retaliation. It's part of the strategy of Ukraine to push Russia into negotiations and to achieve some ceasefire at least, if not a full peace deal.
Indeed, and now with winter approaching, we're seeing the energy arena becoming a key sort of focus of the battle between Russia and Ukraine. How does Ukraine now look at defending its own energy priorities as Russia is also stepping up its attacks, especially on power grids?
Yes, Ukraine needs more support there, definitely. You're absolutely right that the capacity of Ukraine to defend its energy infrastructure is also crucial. And there has been a lot of support from the European countries, including from other countries like Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, United States, obviously, in terms of intelligence mostly. So, Ukraine needs extra support, and all its partners globally realize that, so that, as you said, winter is approaching, and to protect the infrastructure, energy infrastructure in Ukraine is crucial. Russia is the aggressor, so we cannot really compare the two because Ukraine needs to survive. It defends its country. It needs to protect its energy infrastructure. Whereas the Russians, the aggressors, cannot complain, for example, that some of their energy infrastructure is hit in response. This is a responsive war. It's not a chess game where the two sides are equal. They are not equal. Russia is the aggressor, Ukraine is the victims, and for that matter, all support should go to Ukraine and all blame and sanctions should go to Russia.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other crucial updates as far as this war is concerned. We're now learning that a Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, has stated that the European Union is complicit in international terrorism as it continues to sponsor Kyiv. Zakharova has emphasized that the European Commission may postpone its decision on expropriating Russia's assets as an interim decision to approve a 6-month loan to Kyiv, which is being considered due to objections from Belgium and several other EU countries as well. She stated that Kyiv is committing terrorist acts as both against civilians in territories it considers its own and against citizens of the Russian Federation, whom it does not consider as its own but knows fully well are civilians. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Veselin Popovsky. So what do you make of this rhetoric from Russia?
Well, again, another absolutely inadequate, absolutely silly statement. It has nothing, it doesn't deserve to be reported what Zakharova said, although she is officially the speaker of the Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation. But the blame that Ukraine for somehow is a terrorist state is absolutely inadequate and false. Obviously, as I said, Ukraine is defending its territory, and Russia has nothing more to do rather than to make those blames and those claims they're absolutely falsified. Complaining and crying and shouting is the only option left for the Foreign Ministry of Russia, which has been so much discredited over the last 4 years, with its constant lies, falsifications. So nobody pay attention in the world to what Zakharova say anymore. This is simple propaganda, and again, I cannot say more. This is difficult to comment on something so blatantly false and inadequate.
Indeed, she's also referred to the EU's decision in order to use frozen Russian assets in order to supply Kyiv with aid. A lot of experts are touting it as a long-term plan. Initially, this is something that has been in the works for the last 2-3 years itself, but we've seen several roadblocks in the form of Hungary. In fact, not agreeing to this particular plan. Do you think this will go ahead, and would this really address Ukraine's needs in the short term?
Yes, I think it will go ahead. Well, we know Hungary and its President Orban, who is a pro-Russian, pro-Putin, corrupted leader. He receives money from Moscow, and that's why he's doing that. And that's the only country, in fact, in Europe that is the obstacle for more common actions. But the European Union already found the formula to avoid the Hungarian voice, the Hungarian veto on that, and that will go ahead with the frozen assets. This should be given to Ukraine to rebuild its broken economy. Who else, if not the criminal, should pay for the crime, for the victims? Absolutely. It's that in all the history of criminal law, let's put it this way, it's always every judgment, every sentence is that the criminal, the person who committed the crime should pay the cost of the crime. Russia should pay the cost of the destruction of Ukraine. Absolutely no doubt about that. One day, when a peace will be achieved, it will be written in the proper treaty, like in every other big wars in the past. Reparations should be paid, like Germany did after the First World War. After the Second War, we had a Marshall Plan, which also included the obligations of Germany. Russia will pay every single damage it did in Ukraine. So simple. And those frozen assets obviously will deduct that big amount that will be necessary for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Absolutely.
And speaking of Europe at large, particularly NATO, even though they have launched Operation Eastern Sentry, the response on the front lines, the Eastern Front at least, has been very measured. It's been very calibrated. They're not looking at directly escalating anything with Russia on that front. But could we see NATO perhaps applying some sort of pressure in the Baltic area?
Yes. Baltic states are members of NATO. Here, Article 4, Article 5 of the NATO Treaty fully applied. So any provocation by Russia against the Baltic states will be responded with the full force of the NATO military, including armies, absolutely no doubt. The problem with Ukraine is that Ukraine was not accepted into NATO for the last 15 years. And that's, again, it's very funny to think about Russia accusing NATO of being the provocateur of this war. It's exactly the opposite. Ukraine was not accepted into NATO for 15 years. And if it was accepted in NATO, there wouldn't be war at all. So it's the opposite. NATO refused to accept Ukraine, but the Baltic states are members of NATO. They are protected under the treaty, and they will be protected in practice if Russia dares to do any provocation against the three Baltic states.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out